Ladies and gentlemen, in the gritty streets of Los Angeles during the 1930s to the 1950s, one name echoed louder than most: Mickey Cohen. A former professional boxer turned ruthless mobster, Mickey wasn't just another criminal. He was the face of organized crime in Southern California. Mickey Cohen was born Meyer Harris Cohen on September 4, 1913, in the tough borough of Brooklyn, New York, to Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. Life was far from easy. His father died when Mickey was just a child, leaving his mother to raise him and his siblings on her own. Seeking better opportunities and an escape from East Coast poverty, the family relocated to Los Angeles, settling in the ethnically diverse, working-class neighborhood of Boyle Heights. Boyle Heights was a melting pot of cultures, but also a hotbed for street gangs, petty crime, and constant fighting. For young Mickey, violence became a way of life early on. He quickly gained a reputation as a scrappy, fearless street fighter. But unlike many kids in the neighborhood who fought to survive, Mickey fought to dominate. He had a natural toughness that stood out, and he craved respect. By his early teens, Mickey was already frequenting pool halls, running errands for local bookmakers, and brushing shoulders with small-time crooks. But it was the world of boxing that offered him his first real path out of poverty and into something bigger. By the time he was 15, Cohen had moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and began training seriously as a fighter. He eventually made his professional debut in 1930 at just 17 years old, fighting under the name Irish Mickey Cohen. A clever marketing ploy that helped him gain broader acceptance in an era when anti-Semitism was still common in American sports. Cohen wasn't just a gimmick. He was a fierce, aggressive lightweight boxer with real talent. Over the course of his career, he fought in 15 professional bouts, racking up both wins and losses. Though he was never a world champion, he was gritty, fast, and relentless in the ring. But even as his boxing career showed promise, Cohen struggled to stay out of trouble. The discipline required for the sport often clashed with his impulsive, combative nature off the canvas. He became increasingly drawn to the world of illegal gambling, bookmaking, and mob circles that hovered around boxing gyms and fight promoters. For Mickey, the line between athlete and outlaw blurred quickly. He didn't just want to win in the ring. He wanted to control everything outside it as well. And soon, it became clear that Mickey Cohen's real fight wasn't going to be in the boxing ring. It would be on the streets, in the shadows of crime syndicates, where fists were replaced with firearms and loyalty was more dangerous than any punch. As Mickey Cohen drifted further away from the world of professional boxing, he began to fully immerse himself in the criminal underworld. His street smarts, fearlessness, and relentless drive quickly got him noticed by major players in organized crime. But it wasn't until he met Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, one of the most feared and charismatic gangsters of the era, that Mickey's life would take a dramatic and dangerous turn. Bugsy Siegel was no ordinary mobster. A founding member of the notorious Murder Incorporated, he had deep ties to the Italian and Jewish mafias and was known for his charm, his fashion sense, and his absolute ruthlessness. He was connected to some of the most powerful crime families in the country, including Meyer Lansky's network and the Luciano organization. Siegel had ambitions that reached far beyond the East Coast, and when he set his sights on expanding mob operations into California, he needed someone local who understood the streets of Los Angeles. That someone was Mickey Cohen. At the time, Cohen was already working small-time rackets, loan sharking, bookmaking, and muscle-for-hire jobs in the shadows of Hollywood. But when Siegel brought him into his inner circle, Mickey's world changed overnight. He wasn't just another thug anymore. He became a lieutenant in one of the most powerful crime syndicates in America. Under Siegel's guidance, Cohen was given the opportunity to help oversee and manage illegal operations on the West Coast. Together, Siegel and Cohen orchestrated a sprawling empire of gambling dens, extortion rackets, and drug distribution networks. They ran protection schemes for Hollywood nightclubs, skimmed profits from casinos, and built a criminal empire that quietly thrived beneath the glitz and glamour of post-war Los Angeles. And unlike the low-level gangsters who operated in the shadows, Mickey Cohen thrived in the spotlight. He dressed in tailor-made suits, frequented celebrity hotspots, and openly flaunted his wealth and power, a rare move for a mobster and a bold one. Siegel, meanwhile, was occupied with his dream project, the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. This ambitious venture was intended to transform the Nevada desert into a glamorous gambling haven. While Bugsy focused on Vegas, he trusted Mickey to hold down Los Angeles, to be his enforcer, his collector, and his voice. It was during this time that Cohen honed his reputation as both a brutal enforcer and a savvy businessman. He didn't hesitate to use violence when needed, but he also knew how to manipulate, bribe, and influence people in power. The partnership between Siegel and Cohen wasn't just built on crime. It was built on loyalty and ambition. Siegel saw potential in Mickey. He wasn't just muscle. He was smart, relentless, and had a flair for leadership. And for Cohen, Bugsy was more than a boss. He was a mentor, a protector, and a symbol of everything he aspired to be: feared, respected, and in control. As the profits rolled in and the empire grew, Cohen found himself at the heart of a West Coast criminal syndicate that had few equals. But in the mob world, power shifts quickly, and loyalty is often tested by blood and betrayal. When Bugsy Siegel was assassinated in 1947, most expected his criminal empire to collapse or be carved up by rival factions. Instead, it marked the beginning of Mickey Cohen's rise to full power. Rather than fading into the shadows after losing his powerful ally, Cohen seized the moment. He didn't just survive the chaos, he thrived in it. By this point, Cohen had already built strong connections within Los Angeles's criminal and political circles. He had cultivated relationships with corrupt police officers, city officials, and influential businessmen, using charm, intimidation, and cold hard cash to weave a protective web around himself. His tactics were both strategic and ruthless. If money didn't work, violence usually did. He understood the power of fear and reputation and wielded both with expert precision. Unlike most mob bosses who preferred anonymity, Mickey Cohen operated in full view of the public. He gave press interviews, posed for photographs, and became a minor celebrity. His flashy lifestyle, custom-tailored suits, diamond-studded cufflinks, and a constant entourage of bodyguards made headlines. He dined at exclusive restaurants, partied with Hollywood stars, and rubbed shoulders with athletes, actors, and journalists. The media couldn't get enough of him, and Mickey knew how to play the part. He projected himself not as a criminal, but as a self-made businessman, a kind of outlaw entrepreneur who had conquered Los Angeles. Behind the glitz, however, his grip on the city was ironclad. Mickey expanded his control over bookmaking operations, loan sharking, extortion rings, and high-stakes gambling houses. He operated with near impunity, bolstered by bribed police officers and paid informants who kept him one step ahead of any investigation. His crew ran a tightly controlled syndicate that taxed illegal businesses and enforced discipline through brutal violence. Those who refused to pay or crossed the line were swiftly and publicly punished, sometimes fatally. Cohen's enemies didn't disappear quietly. He was the target of multiple assassination attempts, including car bombings and drive-by shootings, as rival gangsters tried to unseat him. But each time, he survived, sometimes by sheer luck, other times by outsmarting his attackers. These near-death experiences only fueled his legend. He began traveling with an ever-growing number of armed bodyguards, turning himself into a walking fortress. His Beverly Hills home was equipped with floodlights, alarms, and reinforced windows, transforming it into something more akin to a military compound than a gangster's mansion. What truly set Mickey apart from other crime bosses was his unapologetic visibility. He testified before government crime commissions, openly talked about his criminal past, and portrayed himself as a misunderstood businessman hounded by jealous rivals and corrupt authorities. His audacity earned him both admiration and fear, not just from the public, but from the very system that struggled to hold him accountable. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, Mickey Cohen was not just a mobster. He was the king of Los Angeles's underworld. He controlled millions in illegal revenue, dictated the rules of the street, and operated with a level of public exposure that few criminals before or since have ever dared to attempt. For a time, he seemed untouchable, a symbol of how deeply crime and corruption had embedded themselves in the fabric of America's post-war cities. For years, Mickey Cohen strutted through the streets of Los Angeles with the confidence of a man who believed he was above the law. And for a time, he was. The police were either on his payroll or too intimidated to act. Judges were bought off, witnesses disappeared, and prosecutors saw cases crumble before they even reached trial. But the one enemy Mickey Cohen couldn't outwit, outshoot, or outbribe was the Internal Revenue Service. By the early 1950s, law enforcement agencies, under increasing political and public pressure, began intensifying efforts to bring Cohen down. The Los Angeles Police Department had long been viewed as either powerless or complicit, but now the federal government stepped in. The FBI and Treasury agents began building a case the mob couldn't ignore, a tax evasion indictment, modeled after the same strategy that had successfully taken down Al Capone years earlier. Despite Cohen's lavish lifestyle, his mansion, exotic pets, fleet of luxury cars, and gambling revenues, he had never filed proper income tax returns. His flamboyance, once a symbol of power, now became the evidence of his downfall. Federal agents tracked his spending, followed his business fronts, and gathered detailed records on his undeclared income. They didn't need to connect him directly to murders or racketeering. They only had to prove he hadn't paid his taxes. In 1951, after years of surveillance, Mickey Cohen was indicted on charges of tax evasion. His courtroom appearances turned into spectacles. He arrived in expensive suits, flanked by bodyguards, flashing a crooked smile at reporters. But behind the bravado, the reality was setting in. This was no minor case. It was the full weight of the federal government, and this time, no bribes or threats would make it disappear. He was convicted and sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, a shocking development to the public who had viewed him as untouchable. But the location of his sentence made even more headlines. Alcatraz, the Rock, the most feared and secure prison in America, reserved for the nation's most dangerous and high-profile criminals. Mickey Cohen, the dapper kingpin of Los Angeles, was now inmate number 1518Z. Life at Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary was a brutal change for Cohen. Gone were the silk suits and steak dinners. In their place, cold concrete cells, regimental routines, and a total absence of luxury or power. Cohen, used to being surrounded by loyal enforcers and hangers-on, now lived under the harsh authority of prison guards who weren't impressed by his past. His fame, which once protected him, now made him a target. And Alcatraz wasn't just tough because of the rules, it was tough because of the other inmates. Violent convicts and professional killers populated its cell blocks, and Mickey Cohen's notoriety made him a marked man. Tensions often flared, and violence simmered just beneath the surface. One of the most significant incidents during his prison term came when he was attacked by a fellow inmate with a lead pipe, reportedly leaving him partially disabled. This wasn't the glamorous criminal life Cohen had once embraced. It was raw survival, day to day, hour to hour. While Mickey maintained his swagger publicly, prison fundamentally changed him. He still gave interviews from behind bars, still spun stories of injustice and political persecution. But the reality was inescapable. The man who once commanded Los Angeles with cash, charm, and a .45 was now locked behind bars, stripped of power and reduced to a number on a cell block. Mickey Cohen died in 1976, not by a bullet in a dark alley or a rival's hand, but in a hospital bed, a quiet end to a violently loud life. He had once ruled Los Angeles with fists, firearms, and fear. From the boxing rings to the smoky backrooms of Hollywood, from Alcatraz's cold walls to the warm lights of television studios, Mickey Cohen left fingerprints all over America's underworld history. But in the end, his empire turned to dust. His power faded. His enemies outlasted him. And yet, his story endured. Today, Mickey Cohen remains a symbol of an era when gangsters weren't just criminals, they were celebrities. A man both feared and admired, both hated and mythologized. He was a product of his time and a master at playing the game, until the game outgrew him. His name still echoes in the alleys of Los Angeles, in the history books, in the blurred line between legend and truth. Because Mickey Cohen didn't just live a gangster's life, he performed it.